Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya al-mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. We are talking about developing an ummah that is based on the intuitive heart-based intelligence. With all the intelligence that Allah has given us, multiple intelligence that Allah has given us, from the perspective of traditional, atheistic or secular psychology as propounded by Howard Gardner, which later on in his life he moved more towards the naturalistic and even existential spiritual intelligences as part of the scheme of intelligences endowed by the Creator to us. So I'm going to go further on this idea so that we can develop how we are going to develop a society, an intuitive heart-based civilization, which is very important. And this basic work has been done by a lot of past Muslim scholars and contemporary Muslim scholars. So how we can develop our networking, our leadership, our teamwork, and how we're going to have our intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligences coupled with our heart-based intuitive intelligences. And how does this work? Okay? Within our framework, Positive Islamic Psychology, inshallah, in this new book that we're going to writing on being achievers, the PIP, Positive Islamic Model for Intuitive Heart-Based 21st Century Civilization, is based on the premise that we are all interconnected. All right, we have what we call a heart-based coherence, which I've explained previously, and the coherence within ourselves, at our level, our heart generate electromagnetic waves that is expanding outward towards the universe. The limits of it, we do not know where it is going. It is interacting with other human beings in the world. So we are interacting with our friends, our society, our country, and it's interacting with all that is in the world, with the beasts, with the ants, with the animals, and all in the universes. And finally, we are interacting right up to the level of the realm of the Creator. How this phenomena work, this is where we Muslims has done a lot of research, a lot of scholarly work in the past, from the great scholars of Imam Ghazali and the likes, and also current, all right, 21st century Muslim scholars of the highest esteem have been doing this. I just want you to refer to this book, all right, Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. This is an exposition of the fundamental elements of the worldview of Islam. This is a fantastic book. And it is by the founder, Professor Emeritus Syed Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas. He is the founder of ISTEC, Islamic International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, which is one of the premier Islamic civilizational research center in the world. All right? And he's also the distinguished professor of Al-Ghazali Chair of Islamic Thoughts. All right? Now, he's still alive. He's an old man now. But his prolegoma of the metaphysics of Islam summarizes all the hundreds, thousands of works in the past. And if you just can read this and understand what he has said about this nature of our existence, which is consonant with the PIP, because I use a lot of their work in my research towards the development of Positive Islamic Psychology model that you can find in this book. All right? In this book. And I just want to read one little chapter, all right, from one little paragraph of how Professor Syed Naqib Al-Atas explained the nature of man and the psychology of the human soul. Just one chapter, all right? Man is, however, given limited knowledge of the spirit, the ruh, of his true nature and his true self. And by means of this knowledge, he is able to arrive at the knowledge of God, al-ma'rifah, and his absolute oneness, that God is his true Lord, al-Rabb, and the object of his worship, al-Ilah. The seed of knowledge in man is a spiritual substance, which is variously referred in the Quran as sometimes as his heart, al-Qalb, or his soul or self, al-Nafs, or his spirit, al-Ruh, or his intellect, al-Akal. In virtue of the truth that man knows in His absolute unity of His Lord. Such knowledge and reality of the situation is necessarily follows it from. Has bound man in a covenant, al-mithaq al-ahad, determining his purpose and attitude and action with respect to himself and his relationship to God. This binding and determining of God to a covenant with God or Allah and to a precise nature in regards of his purpose, attitude, action is a binding and determining factor in religion, ad-din, which entails true submission, al-Islam. Thus, knowledge and religion are not natural correlates in the nature of man, that is, the origin, nature in which God has created him, al-fitrah. Man's purpose is therefore to know and serve Allah, al-ibadah, and his duty in obedience, ta'ah, to Allah, which confirms his essential nature created by God. So you can imagine the wonderful explanation. And also, he explained, the real essence of man originates from the dominion, al-malakut, and the command of Allah, al-amr. When it inclines itself towards the right direction and divine peace, al-sakina, will descend upon it. And when the effusion of divine liberality will successively be diffused it until he achieves tranquility in the remembrance of God or Allah and abides in the knowledge of his divinity, he soars towards the highest level of the angelic horizon. The Quran called this state of the soul the transqueen soul, al-nafsul al-mu'adminnah. All right. So these are some introduction of the nature of the psychology of positive Islamic psychology that you can get from this book. This is a very heavy duty book, but it summarizes so many manuscripts by the great scholars of the past, and every chapter needs very in-depth reading, very purposeful in-depth reading, and this can be your lifetime companion. You can read and read and read, and still you can get more and more and more knowledge by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because our great professor, Professor Said Naqib Al-Atas, he spent more than 50 years of his life doing this work to spread this message, positive message of Islam to all. So when we understand this, we know that what I'm explaining to you is from the perspective of this heart-based civilization. Our heart, our cult, is interacting with all humanity and interacting with all the world, interacting with all the universes. How are we interacting with all the verses? There are verses in the Quran that tells us about that. Okay, I'll just recite to you what the Quran says, which we read very often in the month of Ramadan. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatul qadr. Wa ma adraka ma laylatul qadr. Laylatul qadri khairum min alf shahr. Tanazzalul malaikatu war ruhu fiha bi izni rabbihim min kulli amr. Salamun hiya hatta matla'il fajr. This is the Surah Al-Qadr, and we have indeed revealed this message in the night of power. And what will explain to thee what night of power is? The night of power is better than 1,000 months. Therein come down the angels and the spirit by Allah's permission on every errand, peace until the rise of the morning. So Allah tells us about this interconnection, not only in the day of Qadr, but in how this world, this universe is operated by determining the operating factor or the standard operating procedure which Allah has created, ordained. It is not something that we created. It's created by Allah, and what we need to do is to develop this pattern of how we can develop this. And in this way, we can understand that basically all knowledge that we have in this world is just basically a preliminary to the very deep knowledge in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to us. So I'm going to read you another verse which is in this surah. Surah Al-Kahf, alright, the cave. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Khalidina fiha la yabghuna an hiwala qul law kana al-bahru midadan li kalimati rabbi wa nafida al-bahru qabla an tanfada kalimati rabbi walau ji'na bimithlihi madada qul innama ana basharum mithlukum yuha ilayya annama ilahukum ilahun wahid فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. Therein, I mean those who believe in work righteousness, therein they shall dwell forever, and they will not wish for any other thing. Say, if the ocean were ink, wherein to write out the words of my Lord, the words of Allah, sooner will the ocean be exhausted than the words of my Lord, even if we were to add another ocean like it for 8. Say, I am but a man like yourself. This is referring to our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inspiration has come to me that your God is one God. Whoever expects to meet his Lord, let him work righteousness, and in the worship of Allah, admit no one as partner. So you can see this whole concept of knowledge is unbelievable, unfathomable. The knowledge that Allah has ordained upon us, and how we as Muslims must be able to relate and seek and study this knowledge and become the leaders in the 21st century of a heart-based 21st century civilization. What is this heart-based 21st century civilization? It would be what will be the idea upon. The idea upon would be that Allah tells us all the time. Alright, when we open the Quran, when we say the Fatiha, before we even pray, we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So, compassion. Alright? Mercy, compassion. Starting with forgiveness, mercy, compassion. And Allah is the Al-Wadud. Al-Ghafurul Wadud. He's most forgiving and most loving. So, this love is what is the basis of our existence. And this is all explained in this book. Alright? Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam. And you will find the depth of this research, which will give us a basis of how we can create a peaceful 21st century civilization. So Islam as a religion is a deen that brings towards forgiveness, mercy, compassion and love. It is not a dry religion of just doing something according to the laws. We have the laws, we have the basis. We are not throwing away the laws. We do our ibadah, we do our prayer. But what is the purpose of our ibadah? When we are doing our prayer, is our prayer related to our love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, are just fulfilling the duty of just the exercise of bowing down and that's it. Just quickly get over with it and it's finished. Or we have an intrinsic idea that Allah has created this universe. He has created us as His Khalifa on this earth. That we are to reflect the beauty of this deen. The beauty of this deen is forgiveness. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, mercy, compassion. And Allah is the possessor of the absolute love. And He infused in us some small measure of that love. And if we can develop the love for ourselves, internally, our inter and interpersonal, this is the intra, this is the interpersonal, the waves, the magnetic waves, or you call it the magnetic waves or the spiritual waves, just like in Surah Al-Qadr, how the spirit come down, it is all subject to a lot of understanding. And this has been described in many places in the text. And what we need to do is to review back again and how we can develop a modern, coherent, heart-based civilization, which is Islamic, which will bring all humanity towards the glorious 21st and 21st century. We as Muslims leading this world, because we have to help this civilization. Just because the civilization is going towards self-destruction, we must be the new people with idealism to bring this, to break away from this destruction, to create a new heaven on earth with the grace and mercy of Allah. Always remembering, we are the Caliph of Allah on this earth and His servant, striving to make ourselves good, helping others to be good, making the world good based on the basis of forgiveness, mercy, compassion and love. Inshallah, if you understand that, you understand how we can create a holistic 21st century of peace, happiness and success for all.